The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go, Talkin' Buds Leaf Show. Put the tissues away. For the last 3 weeks, you and I have sat here and have cried all episode long about the state of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But that will not be the case today. This team, sans Morgan Rielly, and without John Tavares for 2 of 3, has rattled off 3 wins in a row. You know, full transparency, traditionally, when the Leafs go on a bit of a winning streak, anyone who makes Leaf content knows the Leafs winning and being good is not the best for business in that sense. If there's one thing that drives engagement for Leaf fans, a few things actually, it's losing streaks, trades, and playoffs. However, I think you and I are both relieved to come on here today and have a different type of conversation than the one we've had the last 3 or so episodes.
But not really that different if you think about it. Because there have been things that, especially you have been beating a drum all season about giving players certain opportunities in the lineup for them to succeed. And what have they done during this win streak through... It's been involuntary because guys have gotten suspended, guys have been sick, guys have been injured. But through that, what happens? Other guys get an opportunity to play a bigger role on a team instead of putting the same 4 guys out over the boards. And look what happens when they get that opportunity.
I don't want to be negative, so I'm not going to sit here and do what I usually do, which is go on some tirade about Sheldon Keefe. But what I am going to say is losing Morgan Rielly to suspension, losing Tavares to illness, Marner for 1 game to illness, put Sheldon in a place where he had to do what you just said, elevate guys and give guys more of an opportunity. And look what happens. Bobby McMann is turning into a blossoming goal scorer. Max Domi looks as engaged as he's looked all season. Timothy Liljegren has taken a step that we've all been waiting for him to take and is playing like a top defenseman because he's being given the opportunity to be a top defenseman.
Yeah, he's moving the puck around.
And we've had lots of conversations this year about, is this team mid? Is this roster mid? And listen, in terms of like overall talent in the Matthews era, yes, this is not the most talented group the team has ever had, but I think what is jumping off the screen is... or continues to jump off the screen, rather, is what a problem Sheldon Keefe is when it comes to deploying this roster. And I just hope that one thing that comes from this little stretch here is his realization that when you put players in a chance, if you give players the opportunity to succeed and put them in positive situations, they can produce for you. And it amazes me that we've got to February, and this is just now clicking in his brain, and the only reason why it's clicking in his brain is because it's out of necessity. He was forced to do this.
Yeah, I mean, Timothy Liljegren has been hilarious to watch. Like, all of a sudden, the guy's just moving the puck, making plays, getting points. This guy was useless 2 weeks ago, and now he's getting an opportunity. He's playing a lot better. Tyler Bertuzzi even. Auston Matthews handed him a goal on a silver platter.
Auston Matthews
awesome.
Is so good that he can bust Tyler Bertuzzi's slump.
Yeah. Auston Matthews in such a role right now where he could just... That was like the best player on a house league team setting up the worst player
to help him get a goal.
Help him get a goal.
Yeah.
But he has gotten a lot of opportunities. It's fun to watch. Now what I will say is the St. Louis Blues did not come in here and play their best hockey. The Flyers, they came in, that was a good win for them. And then they played just an abomination of a hockey
that Ducks team. They didn't even try.
Ducks. That was awful.
Yes.
They were awful.
Yes. That same Ducks team beat the Ottawa Senators, who just beat the Leafs last weekend 5-1 on Thursday night.
And that same goalie that they chased made
Lucas Dostal
60 saves against them about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is they were leafing like no other on Saturday night. We criticize them for playing crappy teams and having a bad record against crappy teams, but if you come into Scotiabank Arena, or if they go on the road, if you're a lesser team or a team that decides that you don't want to play physical,
they will skate right through you.
I know there was some rough stuff after the whistles, but in terms of just the shift by shift physicality and work ethic coming out of the Ducks, if you're playing like that against the Leafs, they are going to leaf you.
Well, yeah, and the physicality, I think that game was really exposed the type of guy Radko Gudas is. Like
he's a weasel.
He'll scream in Joe Wall's face and he'll fight Max Domi, but when Ryan Reeves goes over and wants to have a talk with him, he skates away.
Yeah.
So it was pretty funny to watch him get dunked on like that.
But he got dunked on hard last night.
Another thing I want to point out with respect to Keefe is I think what this week has also shown you as to why Keefe continues to be a huge problem is losing key guys is sort of a thing. I've used the word galvanize on this podcast over and over and over again. And losing these key guys galvanizes the Leafs, and it kind of wakes them up a little bit, because I don't think the head coach has any impact when it comes to getting this team fired up, getting them locked into play. I don't think he has any impact at all. I don't think they listen to him whatsoever. So I think losing key guys, they kind of look around the room and go, all right, we're going to step up. And then he, because he's forced to, puts guys in an elevated opportunity, and you get what you get this week. And it just shows that, we've been looking at the trade deadline going, who are they going to bring in? Who are they going to bring in? When in reality, it's like, yes, you'd love another talented defenseman. And that is who I think they should try and pursue, whether they do that or not. But you look at the forward depth and you're going, wait a minute, Max Domi can be a factor going forward. Bobby McMann can be a factor going forward if these guys are put in situations to succeed. I saw a great tweet before you and I jumped on here, actually, that said, in previous years, if they would have gone and got Max Domi and Tyler Bertuzzi at the deadline, we would have sat and said, perfect, this is exactly what they need.
That's what we said before the season.
Yes.
That's what we said when they signed here.
Yes.
That it's the same thing. I need to have a discussion here, okay? Because there's been a lot of crying. There's been a lot of just points being thrown around all year. A lot of criticism coming from us, coming from the fan base. But there's one thing that I just looked at on my laptop, and it is coming a trend year after year. The Toronto Maple Leafs are second in the NHL in power play percentage. They have been in the top 5 in power play percentage for probably as long as this era has happened, this Keefe era, even going back to Babcock. They've been a top 5 power play. But yet, when you watch the games, you get so frustrated with their power play and you think they're shit. But if we're going to criticize them for a lot of different things, should we be looking at ourselves as a fan base and being like, maybe we should lay off the power play a little bit? They're second in the NHL in power play.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think has changed this year with the Guy Boucher version of the power play is Matthews is in the position where he's shooting.
I think actually Matthews has looked at his game over the past couple seasons, and he's been putting in the wrist shots. He's been getting free and getting those bang-in goals. But the one thing he was missing was that Stamkos OV one-timer, and through reports, through video, through the broadcast, this guy's clearly working on his one-timer.
Yes.
So that developing that part of his game is why he's almost at 50 goals already. That was the one thing he was missing as a top. He already was the top goal scorer in the league. But now adding that to his arsenal, it's game over. And that's why he's 9 goals ahead of the next best guy. He's almost at 50 goals because he's actually taken the time to develop that one-timer. And that's why their power play looks way better now. They're way more dangerous.
With respect to the power play, I think I would like to see Tyler Bertuzzi take John Tavares' spot on PP1 for a few weeks and see how that goes. I think Bertuzzi excels by banging in greasy goals, and I think Keefe hasn't put him in a ton of positions this year in order to do that, which is why his numbers have suffered. Like, I don't think Tyler Bertuzzi, like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to watch that guy and go, this guy isn't a super, like, he's not a very good transition hockey player.
There's been, I think the other night against the Blues was the first time I've ever seen him take the puck from behind the net and skate it past the red line by himself.
Yeah, that's not his game, but I do think, like, parking his ass in front of the net and banging in a greasy goal is where he can excel. And I think Tavares has been pretty average for a while now. And I think you're at a position, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. I think you're in a position where you need to start looking with 1 year left on his deal at transitioning John Tavares into a new role on this hockey team, whether that's third line center, whether that's playing a wing, I don't know. And I think that includes power play. And I think giving Tyler Bertuzzi, I'm not saying it needs to be permanent, but I would like to see Bertuzzi get a few reps on power play 1 and see if he can be effective in front of the net.
This is kind of my point, though, is Tyler Bertuzzi's been on the power play for 3 games, but they didn't jump to second in the league in 3 games. Like, they're second in the league because of their body of work all year, and that includes John Tavares on that power play. So if we're going to come on here and criticize them week after week, I got to kind of look at myself in the mirror, and maybe we got to calm down a little bit when it comes to this power play, because with John Tavares on the power play, there's still a top 2 power play in the NHL.
Yeah, I think...
And I think it's because when they aren't scoring on the power play, it's just, like, really bad.
Yes.
Like, just the back passes, it just looks ugly. But I got to look at myself in the mirror and be like, maybe I don't watch enough power plays around the NHL to really understand how, like, pretty good their power play is. And another part of that, too, is when the playoffs roll around, they don't score big power play goals when they need to. So that also factors in. But I think since this is a whole positive episode and we're not crying, I think I've just got to look at myself in the mirror and be like, maybe, you know what, maybe got to lay off the power play in the regular season a little bit. Like, because, like, look at them. Like, there's some top teams, and they're all ahead of them. Like, we got to calm down a little bit when it comes to the power play a little bit.
Yeah, I think you just hit on it. I think, first of all, you've mentioned this a couple times over the years on this pod that, like, we sort of view this team through a microscope and a vacuum, and we don't really pay attention. Like, I don't sit and watch other teams' power plays across the league. So we sit and we express frustration with the back pass or the come over the blue line and the little flick pass to the side, because when it doesn't work, it looks awful.
Or what happened against Philadelphia, where they gave up that shorthanded goal.
Yes,
off.
Yes,
like,
Keefe,
what was
Keefe's
going on
is
there?
Going to explode.
Yeah,
yes.
that was terrible. Like, there's things like that also happen that factor
like you said,
in.
The proof is in the pudding with the numbers.
Yeah, last year I'm pretty sure they were number 2 in the league last year behind Edmonton. Now they're number 2 behind Tampa. Like, I mean, if I'm going to criticize, it's just a weird thing that I saw it. Maybe we need to calm down a little bit when it comes to criticizing these guys on the power play, because they're converting better than all the top teams in the league, basically. So, I don't know, just a weird thought.
You touched on Auston Matthews there, and one of the things I wanted to bring up today was there has been a change in his overall demeanor, I find, this season in particular. I think he has really, I don't want to say matured because it sounds so like condescending or whatever, but
no, but it's true, though.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is I think this is his hockey team now, and I think there needs to be a serious discussion in the offseason about making him the captain of the team. And I think you need to position it as John Tavares saying, it's your team now. I'm on the back half of my career. You're the future here, so we're going to make you the captain. I really think it's time. I mentioned last week, I thought the way he carried himself through the All-Star weekend was fantastic. He's being a leader, and you and I have... One of the things in the 6 years we've done this podcast that we've talked about with him from time to time is we're waiting for him to take over a game. And he's done that now.
Yeah, the guy's 50 goals.
Yeah,
it's pretty ridiculous.
To be
He's got
where
2 hat tricks in a row.
Yes, like to be where he's
It's
at.
insane.
Yeah, to be where he's at. To be at 48 goals at this point in the season.
It's literally insane.
It is insane. And he's taking over games. He literally, I said earlier, he single-handedly broke Tyler Bertuzzi's slump.
Yeah.
He's apparently, he and Bobby McMann are chumming it up in the room
best
now.
buds.
Yeah, they're best buds.
Yeah.
Like,
He's got 48 goals in 52 games.
I
That
just
is
think
ridiculous.
a page, like we're already 3/4 of the way through the season, or maybe not quite 3/4. I don't know. This ain't a math podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We're in February in the NHL season.
There's 30 games left.
Yeah, we're in February
something like that.
in the NHL season. So it kind of is what it is for the rest of this year. But I do think in the offseason, a page needs to be turned with this group. And I think the first thing is they need a new head coach. And I think they need to make Auston Matthews the captain. I think it needs to be a whole thing where it's like, this is your team now, and it doesn't need to be a slap in the face to John Tavares. It doesn't need to be anything like that. It can just be, I'm on the back nine of my career. You've sort of taken the forefront of the leader of this team. Last night, the MVP chants are ringing through Scotiabank Arena. He's in the Hart conversation again. Like, make this guy the captain of the hockey team. And you can debate the significance of a letter on a guy's jersey.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with this.
You can debate the significance of that, but I just think symbolically this team needs to turn the page, and I think that's part of turning the page is making him the captain of the team.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. This was always Auston Matthews' team. I never once looked at this team and said this is John Tavares' hockey team. Like that's a joke. I think when they made him captain at the time, was Babcock the coach when they made him the captain?
And there was all these rumors about who was going to be, and it's I don't want to. All the speculation is that they were going to give it to Matthews, and then he had the mishap in the offseason with the...
Yeah, that was tough.
Yes.
That was tough with the whole whatever he did. I can't even remember.
Yeah,
but
there was a situation that I think sort of influenced their decision, and I think Babcock wanted Tavares all along anyway. And
see, I think that at the time that kind of made sense.
Yeah,
you know,
they were still young. Johnny was coming over. He had experience captaining an NHL team.
Yeah, I think the point you made before that about John Tavares transitioning into a different role as a hockey player in the NHL is kind of where this all leads. And that kind of leads to him not being the captain anymore. But the only problem with that is they don't have enough centermen for him to even switch positions or even go down to being a third line center because they just don't have enough centers.
But why couldn't you make Pontus the third line center?
Pontus is like, I mean, you could.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping you,
like,
but they don't have enough. Their center depth is pretty awful.
But also, I think if you move Tavares down the lineup, he theoretically won't get the matchups he's currently getting, and that'll sort of help him, give him a bit more room, I guess. I don't know. I just think one thing we know from watching Max Domi is significantly more effective when he's playing with good hockey players.
So is every hockey player.
So, yeah, but Domi in particular, though, man, like if he's got the best games you've seen Domi play this year is when either Mitch Marner or William Nylander have been on his wing.
Yeah, I think the only thing Tavares can really do, like you can move him up and down the lineup, that's all well and good, but that doesn't. That's not going to change the way he plays. He's just going to have to make a conscious decision to play a different way, to be more defensively responsible, to focus more. Like he's already one of the best centermen in the NHL with winning faceoffs. So that already leads into him being a better defensive centerman. But he's not scoring 40 goals this year. Like it's not happening. And he's just going to have to make a conscious decision to play a different style of hockey. In his whole life, he was the number 1 overall pick. He absolutely dominated the OHL back in the day. He was touted to be one of the best ever, really. And then he came in and you look at his career. He's had a really great career. He's been a point of game player, as we've said over and over and over and over again in this podcast. But for John Tavares, he's going to have to learn how to play a different style of hockey as he gets older. And it's going to be, I think one of the most interesting things is going to be the contract, his next contract. That's going to be.
Well, and that's, as we talk about him transitioning, that's kind of what I mean is it's like you're You're not at a point where I think that you can be effective in a top 6 role all the time anymore. And then the argument for keeping him there is the fact that he makes $11 million. Well, he's got one more year left at $11 million. And as you and I and everyone else has said, if he's staying here, he's taking a significant haircut. Like if he's going to sign an extension with the Leafs, it'll be a short-term extension. So 1 to 3 years at a significant haircut. Like 5, if I'm doing it, between 5 and 6 million is what I'm giving him. So it's just part of the transition. And there's nothing wrong with it. This isn't to sit here and knock John Tavares. It's just the fact that like the guy it's natural.
He's on the back. It's the evolution of an athlete.
He's on the back 9 of his career.
Especially when you're not a fleet of foot. Like say what you want about Patty Marleau. Like that guy could skate until he retired, Like John Tavares is not that guy. But look at Corey Perry, for example. I know that's not the best comparison in terms of personalities, but Corey Perry led the league in points and was a Hart Trophy winner and was an Olympic gold medalist and was a perennial point getter at the top of the league. And he eventually just wasn't able to do that and became an absolute menace as a bottom 6 hockey player. And John Tavares is at that point in his career where he's going to kind of have to make that decision. But if you look at this roster, they got who's replacing this guy as the second line center? There's nobody.
You can give Domi a few looks up.
Domi is not a centerman, okay? He's not.
Well, then
Max, if you want your best hockey team, Max Domi is not playing center.
Okay.
It is not. I'm not replacing John Tavares with Max Domi as a centerman. It's not happening. Tavares, what is Tavares? Like almost 60% in the draw? Like no. Like come on. That's a little. You're getting a little out there with that.
So where would you put Max Domi?
They just need a better third line center to play with Max Domi on the third line.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you just put Bertuzzi down. You put Domi on the second line.
So a few minutes ago,
I'm not having Max Domi. You're not winning anything with Max Domi as your second line center.
So
it's not happening.
So a few minutes ago, I was like, well, Keefe's elevating everybody. Maybe they don't need a depth piece at forward, but you still are of the belief that so what would you do? You've got a chance to go and get a defenseman at the deadline that's going to improve. This is all under the guise of I don't think they should be mortgaging their future for a rental. But let's just say, hypothetically, you've got a chance to add to your forward depth, or you've got a chance to go get a defenseman. Which one are you doing?
I think you have to go get a defenseman. Like, you absolutely have to. That is an absolute need. That is, like, it's not even close, but this is the problem with this team. They need so many different things that they won't be able to satisfy at the deadline, even if they are going to trade away first-round picks and third-round picks or whatever. They just don't. They need so much. They need 3 guys, basically. They need a competent third-line center so Domi can stop playing center, and then they need 2 defensemen. I know everyone's playing well and everyone's being elevated right now. That's all well and good, but that's not going to happen. When you play the Florida Panthers in the first round, like that's not going to matter. In regards to Auston Matthews, like if John Tavares takes the C off and puts it on Auston Matthews, okay, that's all well and good. But what does that really do? At the end of the day, Auston Matthews, whether he's wearing an A or a C, it's his hockey team. Everybody knows it. And when it comes time to play the Florida Panthers in the first round, it doesn't matter what letter he's wearing on his jersey. He is the leader of this hockey team, and he has to play like it. And he has to play like the way he's playing right now in the playoffs. I don't care what letter is on his jersey. At the end of the day, I think it's a nice little conversation to have on a podcast. But to me, it means nothing.
I think that type of symbolism does matter to guys in that room. And I think when you look at this team, I've sat here all season and gone, the vibes are all off, the vibes are wrong. I just think a symbolic turning of the page, I just think that makes sense.
You know, maybe you're right. Yeah. But I mean, Dougie Gilmour wasn't wearing the C in 93.
No, he wasn't.
Look what he did.
No, it's
so
true.
It's I mean, at the end of the day, Auston Matthews has to be the best hockey player on the planet come April.
Yes.
No matter what.
Especially if
no matter what letter he's wearing. And he's old enough, he's mature enough. What is Auston Matthews not going to say something in the room because John Tavares is wearing the C? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, come on. But I get what you're saying. Like, it is kind of like, okay, Austin's the captain now. And especially, like, look what happened to Blake Wheeler in Winnipeg when they went to him and they said, we don't want you to be the captain anymore. I'm sure that kind of had an effect on everybody and had an effect on him it is kind of, I don't want to say like a slap in the face, but it is kind of like when you
don't-
go up to a guy and you say, we don't want you to be the captain anymore. We want this guy to be the captain. It is kind of awkward. But
Ryan, John Tavares is at a point in his career where he's about to leave the territory and he's got to drop the title to the number one guy in the promotion, and that's really all this is. It's just symbolic of a transition.
He was never the number one guy in the promotion. It was
when
they put the C on him because Auston Matthews was still a young guy at the time, and especially when Babcock was coaching, we all know how much Mike Babcock loved veterans and guys who've been there, and that's what this is about. And it's just. They could have changed it over the past couple seasons, but at the end of the day, it doesn't. I don't know. It's just Auston Matthews just has to play. I just don't think it matters, really. I don't. Okay. I don't think it matters.
Okay, moving on. I want to do a bit of a deep dive to end this episode on the Leafs record without Morgan Rielly, and like a lot being made of it. And I think a lot of it is because like we talked about the team being galvanized by losing their top defenseman. We talked about Keefe being forced to elevate guys like a Liljegren after losing their top defenseman. But what I want to know is there something about the way Rielly plays or the positions he's put in or something like that that kind of hurts them defensively? For me, I think if you look at the guy's ice time night in and night out, he's always one of the top guys that Keefe is constantly putting out there game in and game out. And I think the way Rielly plays is he's sort of an offense first defenseman. I think he's having a great year this year, and I think he's a core piece of this team. And to be quite honest with you, if you were going to have we're talking about transitioning the C. If Tavares is going to transition the C, Matthews is number 1 on the list and Morgan Rielly's number 2. But why does this team have the record it does? Sans Morgan Rielly.
That's a $1 million question. It's a very good question. I think just what we said at the start, just guys get elevated. I don't know. It is hard to. Even
TJ Brody.
Craig Simpson was kind of puzzled on the broadcast, being like, "This is very strange. It actually makes no sense."
TJ Brody looks. There's a significant difference in TJ Brody now that he's not playing with Morgan Rielly anymore. And I'm not saying that it's Morgan Rielly's fault. I'm not saying that at all. Last year, Luke Schenn was a fantastic partner for Morgan Rielly. So what this tells me in these few games he's been out now and watching other guys around him and watching the team plays is it's two things. One, I think the type of player Morgan Rielly requires a very specific partner, a not TJ Brody, excuse me, a Luke Schenn type, like Luke Schenn's not jumping up into the rush ever. And so I think a big, sturdy, stable, stay-at-home guy is the ideal partner for Morgan Rielly. And I think I don't think the guy needs to rack up huge minutes every night. I think it impacts the way a guy like Timothy Liljegren, like he doesn't get his touches and he doesn't get, like, I do think...
I think you hit it. I think minutes do matter.
Yes.
I think the minutes matter because if you look at the Leafs defense core over the past couple seasons has not been very good offensively.
No.
Like they're at the bottom of the league when it comes to offense contributed by defensemen. You look at the year Morgan Rielly's having this year. He's got 43 points in 50 games. Fantastic. But yeah, I think if you were to look at it, the only thing you could really say is just, I guess he could play just a couple less shifts. I don't know.
And they need to
get guys in the groove.
He needs a specific partner. Like he needs a guy who is a lot more stable.
There's another need.
Yeah.
Add that to the pile.
Well, if you're going out and looking for a defenseman, that's the type of defenseman you're looking for.
Yeah.
Is a stay-at-home guy. You're not looking for another guy who can jump up into the rush and provide offense.
I'm never going to say that this team, I'm not going to lie, watching them without Tavares kind of gets your brain thinking a bit. Being like that maybe having this guy not in the lineup is
it's not even,
it gives you a preview
of
what.
Hold on. It's not in the lineup. It's not having this guy make $11 million.
Yeah. It's you don't need this guy making $11 million for what he does.
Yes.
That I'm watching the games and I'm like, this is kind of a nice little preview of a guy not making 11 million in the lineup.
Shouldn't be making 11 million at this point in his career.
But I'm not looking at it that way with Rielly. It's
no, I'm not saying that like this team is better without Morgan Rielly. I think,
but you could make the argument
yes,
though, based off the record. The record without him is ridiculous.
I think the way the coach deploys the player and who he plays with makes a massive difference. That's what I think.
Yeah,
it's just Chris Versteeg has said this on 590 all year. Look, we're coming full circle to how we started the episode. That a lot of the issue the Leafs have with their depth players is the fact that they don't play enough and they don't get touches and they don't get engaged in the game. And I think you see that with some of these other defensemen, as Timothy Liljegren in particular. Like, look at the guy when you're giving him power play opportunities. Look at the guy when he's out there in top 4 situations. He looks like a completely different. Like, is he perfect? No. He's going to make mistakes. But again, it's just further proof that he's engaged and you don't need to rely on the same 5 guys over and over and over again.
I mean, you look at the plus minus is pretty. I know plus minus doesn't really factor much into the NHL anymore for some people, but Morgan Rielly's a +1 and TJ Brody's a +16. Like, how do you explain that? Like that's very odd to me.
Yeah, I mean,
that's for a guy who we've dunked on all year. He's literally +16.
Well,
like that's kind of strange. I'm just saying.
Well, no, but you look at the way some of these other guys are performing, like Jake McCabe and Simone Benoit. Simone Benoit is
the savior this season.
Yeah, like this is a guy who they brought in on a flyer. Who that Ducks team that you watched on Saturday night cut him was like, you're not good enough to play for us. Yeah.
That's a joke.
That is a joke.
That team's awful.
Yeah, he's come in here and and it's just what I always say about Leaf Nation and why I can't stand people going, it's so hard to play here. They have it so hard here. It's like Simone Benoit is a guy who is nowhere close to the most talented guy in the league, but he works his balls off on every single shift and he lays the body. He works hard. He's a fan favorite. He
dropped the gloves the other night against a very tough individual.
Yes.
And I know the fight didn't go very long, but he still dropped the mitts against one of the toughest guys in the league.
Says all the right things in the media, just talks about how grateful he is to be here. And like you see the clips of him in the dressing room when he gets the belt and he's like,
what I like about him too is the quotes for that when he got cut, he was pissed off.
Yes.
He was pissed off. And he came here and he started in the minors and he just wasn't going to be denied. And I know we're not talking about an all-star here, but it's been a big factor for this hockey.
Yeah, he has. He's been awesome. And I think he and McCabe are a great pairing.
Yeah.
Jake McCabe is another guy who, that
guy's face right now is whoa.
There are times where I think Jake McCabe needs to be a little more measured and with his puck movement, but that was a great pickup by Kyle Dubas to get him with term. And he's a guy who is like a stable, sturdy guy who doesn't shy away from physical stuff, lays beautiful hits. If someone comes up to him and wants to drop the mitts, he's more than game always.
That guy's face right now.
Yeah,
he's
an animal.
Sleeps comfortably.
He's a warrior.
The amount of high sticks and pucks that guy's got in the face over the past 3 weeks.
Like they've got him again next year for $2 million.
Yeah, they're gonna when they got no look at them.
Yes.
Him and Rielly are the only guys who have contracts going into next season.
Yeah. So you gotta tip your hat to Kyle Dubas for that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you take a look at the week.
The Rielly thing it's very I don't have a good answer for it. I really don't.
I think I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think it just further illustrates that one of, if not the biggest issue with this hockey team since it started this year is the guy behind the bench. Like, it's pretty simple. We've talked about ice time. We've talked about how losing key players galvanizes them because the head coach he just can't motivate them. How many times in this head coach's tenure have we talked about crappy effort and not being ready to play over and over and over again? And so right now they're winning because the head coach has been forced into a situation that he doesn't he has to play these guys.
I don't want to be that guy either, but the 2 of those 3 games were against teams that came out and put forth a pretty mediocre effort.
Okay.
I don't want to be that guy, but
well,
if there's I'm sure there's some cynic out there who has that take.
No, for sure. But I sat here last weekend and cried my eyes out about how they lost to a non-playoff
I know.
team,
That's a
Senators.
problem. I know. You can't win.
Yes.
They can't win. You beat a crap. It's like when they went on the West Coast and they beat the crap at all those teams, and they came back and everyone had to take that. They played against some pretty lesser teams, but yet all year we've been complaining about how they lose to lesser teams.
Yes.
So they can't win. They really can't.
Well, I mean, they
got a tough stretch coming up here, though.
Yes.
I mean, they got the Blues, which we'll see what the Blues come out with, because I wasn't really impressed with what I saw last week. But we know what happens when they go to the desert. They suck.
I am just
they're awful in the desert.
I always get fired up to watch a game in that barn.
Yeah, we got a lot. We got 2 Yotes games. We got 2 Golden Knights games.
The Avalanche.
Got the Avalanche.
The Rangers. The Bruins coming
Bruins
up.
twice again. Yeah, they're oof.
Yeah, oh yeah. Like the Flyers, we're well into March now, but like the Flyers, the Hurricanes. Look at this. Philly,
They play a lot of teams
both
twice.
in Philly. Yeah. The Oilers. You know what? This comes back to the take that we've heard that you brought up last week, which is maybe down the stretch. I was actually watching, I was with a friend the other night, and they had when the Leafs were playing the Flyers, they had the Philadelphia Flyers feed on. And the analyst was like, for this Leaf team, I don't think necessarily fighting in a playoff spot against all these good teams down the stretch is the worst thing for them. And that's something you mentioned last week. And that's something that I know Justin Bourne has talked about like the excitement of like they're not, because the last 3 years by this time in the season, they've been well into a playoff spot, and they were playing.
I forget who originally had that take, who I credited. It might have been Elliot, but yeah, that was the original, or it might have been Luke Fox. I don't know, but I thought that was a decent take. I mean, if you look at the standings right now, like there's no way they're missing the play.
Well,
it's not good unless they just go. Like, they have some tough games. I mean, the Devils are kind of there now, but they still got 3 games in hand on the Lightning. One thing smashed against the Panthers.
One thing we need to talk about quickly before we go. A lot of the attention lately has been on, rightly so, Auston Matthews goal scoring, Bobby McMann stepping up, all that stuff. Ilya Samsonov has come back and been very solid. There's a goal here and a goal there that I'm sure he would like back, but this guy, when he got sent down to the Marlies, we and everyone else who covers this team was sitting here talking about how this guy is done. We'll never see him in a Leaf uniform again. And right now, if you're going into the playoffs, depending on how Joe Woll progresses, if the playoffs started tomorrow, Ilya Samsonov is starting game 1 in the net for the Maple Leafs.
100%.
And so I think I didn't want to leave today without saying that, because you can criticize stuff in the last like before this 3-game win streak, but you got to tip your hat to that guy.
I also didn't talk enough about. Can we also look at the Panthers are a point ahead of the Bruins now? I totally gapped on that.
If you're
we could be going to TD Garden Arena. Honestly, I think that's a better matchup for them.
Well, so you're kind of, but that's the thing, right?
Like, I never thought I would ever say that, but I actually think that's a better matchup for them.
I'm kind of at the point where I look at this and I go, I want them to finish in a place where they don't have to play the Panthers.
Yeah, that's the last team you want them playing.
So you want them to, if like right now, you'd want them finishing 3rd in the division because they play the Bruins.
Well, honestly, I think the best case scenario would them be finishing in the first wild card spot and playing the Rangers.
Yes.
That would be, because we see them play the Rangers. They always play the Rangers pretty well.
The Rangers are a good matchup for them because the Rangers aren't a team that is going to out physical.
Trouba's a bit of a dink, but other than that, they always play them well. But I never thought I would ever say that I would rather be playing the Boston Bruins than playing the Florida Panthers.
The Florida Panthers, you and I need to stop doing. You and I have had multiple occasions on this pod this year where we've gushed about the Florida Panthers, but I just got to say, the thing that blows my mind about the Florida Panthers is, Paul Maurice steps down as head coach of the Winnipeg Jets. The Panthers pick him up, and we're all sitting here going, what? Paul Maurice? Like, that's kind of a random way to go. They have the moment last year in Scotiabank Arena where he absolutely goes berserk on them. And since that happened, they have been the most complete, dialed-in, dangerous team. Yes, they lost in the final to the Golden Knights, but they are... The reason why they're such a bad matchup for the Leafs is the physicality and nastiness that every guy on that team plays with. That whole team has assumed Matthew Tkachuk's, and this brings us full circle. We're talking about Auston Matthews and it's important. I know Matthew Tkachuk's not the captain, but you said, Matthews has to be the leader come playoff time. And when you look at the Florida Panthers, that whole team has assumed Matthew Tkachuk's identity, and they're a wagon, that hockey team.
They're really good.
They're a wagon.
They're a dream. they're literally a dream. They are just everything you'd want out of your hockey team.
But yeah, I'm with you. I think ideally you want that first wild card spot, and you want
you can't
the
be
New York
messing around
Rangers.
with that.
Yeah, you want the New York Rangers. That's what you want.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the Red Wings look pretty. They got a big win too. They have a lot of tough games. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, I do think the point of them playing tough hockey games coming down the stretch is a good thing for them.
Yes,
absolutely,
100%. How about those Pittsburgh Penguins?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
They need to start having a conversation there about Sid.
Yeah,
because I think Dubas is learning he needs a full on rebuild there, and I think moving off Sid is the first part of that. But hey,
yeah.
All right, we're gonna get out of here. We'll be back this time next week. I think right now we're talking before the episode that we're going to stick on a 1 episode a week pace. Now, as we get closer to the deadline, we'll start ramping that up to 2. And then obviously as we get into the playoffs, we do our post game after every playoff game. The subscribers, the new subscribers and the engagement on these YouTube videos and these episodes has been unbelievable. The comments, unbelievable. I'm honestly overwhelmed. Like you were saying before we hit play here that it just blows you away the amount of comments and debate that we get on our videos, and we really appreciate it. It's amazing. So if you want to if you're new and you're just checking us out for the first time and you want to ride with us for the rest of the season, hit that like and subscribe button below. If you're listening to the audio version, leave a comment, leave a review. Every little bit helps.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week.